Yes. I had a little time by myself last night. I was reading this domestic violence manual. Yes. And, it's kind of interesting that I was arrested on Guam, but Heidi had already purchased plane tickets. Yes. Without telling me, of course. There's what's known as the UCCJEA. Yes. See, there's a big problem with issuing custody orders where the actual state of jurisdiction wasn't Clallam County. And just looking at it, yes. I'm kind of thinking that when you issued the protection order without me having any notice or opportunity, yes. They give some examples of how to specifically word visitation, right? And let me see, what page is this on? Page 1017. Yes. Importance of specificity relating to the requiring that a domestic violence abuser have limited contact contingent on successful engagement in services. Such an order should include the specific services that the abusive parent should be enrolled in. Yes. Including the duration and frequency. Who will pay for the services, the type and frequency of reporting back to the court about the progress of the services. It seemed that every domestic violence protection order you issued from 2011 said mental health evaluation and treatment if recommended. The problem is that I was actually arrested on Guam. And you issued a domestic violence protection order when I wasn't a resident of the state of Washington. Yeah. Now, obviously, when you arrested me in May of 2012 without giving me any custody rights, then you reissued it by minute order. The whole dissolution of marriage happens to be against the law. It violates the UCCJEA. Yes. I know that when I was arrested and you served me at the same time, right, that you actually obstructed my rights, interstate custody, parental kidnapping, and international child abduction. Yes. Now, there's this thing called jurisdiction. Domestic violence victims may move across state lines to leave abusive relationships and seek safety or support of friends and family. Heidi had to move back to Clallam County, and she had to live, the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Enforcement Act, codified in Washington State's Chapter 26.27. Yes. Was adopted by the state of Washington, repealing the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Act, yes, of the UCCJA, as of May 2014, 49 states, yes. Now, I had actually marked this, yes, applies to most child custody proceedings, including domestic violence protection orders, yes. It does apply to the protection order that was issued when I wasn't a resident. Guardianship, termination of parental rights, dissolutions of marriage. When you had conference setting hearings without the actual court rules being enforced, yes, it happens to violate the UCCJEA. See, the person known as the actual custody parent has to be given notice within the allowed time of the rules of every court. And then legal separation excluded are juvenile delinquency, emancipation, adoption, emergency medical care proceedings, as well as any custody proceeding pertaining to an Indian child to the extent it is governed by the Indian Child Welfare Act. Yes, the RCWs. Now, when they really look at this interstate custody, yes, parental kidnapping and international child abduction, for the purpose of Washington's UCCJEA domestic violence protection orders, which affect a parent's contact with a child, are competing violation orders. Pooch, good morning. This RCW 26.52080. There you go. Now, marriage of Tosado, yes, for purpose of, yes, Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act, codified in 28 U.S. Code 1738A. State includes Native American tribal courts. Ooch. Now, I kind of looked through this, the confidentiality and privacy. Now, the home state for the basis of jurisdiction has priority over all other bases for jurisdiction. Home state, yes, is defined as the state in which a child lived with a parent or person acting as a parent for at least 6 consecutive months immediately before the commencement of a child custody proceeding. In the case of a child younger than 6 months of age, the term means the state in which the child lived from birth with a parent or person acting as a parent. Benjamin was born on Guam? Yes. I did a rough calculation of exactly how long we lived on Guam because we had to fill out all this paperwork from the mayor of Guam. Yes. To be eligible for the Housing Prevention and Relocation Program, I sent you that documentation? Yes. Now, it's kind of interesting when you read through this, there's 2 different reasons, and I'll go back to it. More appropriate forum for the jurisdiction, temporary emergency jurisdiction. Yes. I don't think Clallam County ever really contacted the public defender's office. Yes. Now, the thought was, well, oh, look at this, I put an approved stamp. Upon being informed that a custody proceeding is commenced in another state or a custody determination, the issuance of the protection order, the court must immediately communicate with the other court to resolve the emergency, protect the parties and the child. Yeah. The court may enforce an order for return of a child under the Hague Convention of the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction. Yes. Put a little approved there. Now, when you issue a court order and it's not the home state of jurisdiction because Heidi got here 4 days after leaving Guam, did you actually communicate with the public defender's office because they have the jurisdiction of any protection? Well, they could have issued it on Guam. Now, considering that I wasn't able to leave the island territory for 18 months, yes. And then you arrested me for violating the fraudulent protection order, yes. And then you reissued it by minute order a week after she filed for dissolution of marriage. I'm thinking that there's no, civil aspects of the international child abduction. The issue of inconvenient forum may be raised by the request of another court, a party, or the court's own motion before determining whether it is an inconvenient forum. The court shall consider whether another state exercising jurisdiction is appropriate. Now, when she filed in May of 2012, right, she got here in July of 2011, she had actually been a resident for 6 months. But I got to the United States of America on July 7th, and when you filed it on May 24th, I hadn't been a resident for 6 months. Now, since Benjamin had been with both of us while we were on Guam, yes, and I wasn't allowed to... Did you contact the Attorney General of Guam about the issuance of a dissolution of marriage where one of the parents did have custody of the 5 sons and was... Well, that was my... It's a very inconvenient forum.